Sometimes a moment changes you before you even understand why. And for Maya, that moment began the second she heard the soft click of the door closing behind him. She did not turn around right away. She just stood there in that quiet room, breathing slowly, trying to calm the faint tremble in her hands. The rehearsal had run longer than planned. Everyone else had already left the community center. And she thought she would be alone for at least a few minutes. But then he walked in. And everything felt different. Daniel had always carried a kind of calmness with him. Not loud. Not intimidating. Just steady in a way that made people breathe easier around him. But tonight, something was off. Or maybe it was simply that she was the one feeling off. She had been overwhelmed all evening. Too many decisions. Too many emotions she had been pretending not to feel. And then she walked into the small storage room to grab some extra lanterns. She expected silence. She expected space. Instead, she got him. She finally turned around, and when she did, she saw that Daniel looked almost as surprised as she felt. He leaned back against the door, letting out a slow breath. "Maya, I didn't know you were still here." His voice was gentle but carried something she couldn't name. Not frustration. Not concern. Just something different. "I needed a moment," she admitted softly. It was the truth. All night she had smiled, guided volunteers, organized schedules, made decisions. But beneath it all, she felt like a shaken snow globe, trying to pretend the swirling pieces weren't there. Daniel's eyes softened. "You've been carrying too much again, haven't you?" She forced a small smile. "You noticed?" "I always notice." Those words landed deeper than she expected. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a romantic way. Just honest. Real. Her throat tightened for a moment, but she pushed through it. "I'm fine," she said. It sounded unconvincing even to her. Daniel stepped a little farther into the room, though still giving her space. He didn't rush toward her. He didn't overwhelm her. He simply stood there with that familiar calmness she had always counted on. "Fine doesn't usually involve you hiding in a storage room," he said quietly. She looked down at the lantern in her hands and let out a small breath. "Tonight felt heavier than it should have. I think I just needed a place where nobody expected anything from me for a minute." Daniel nodded slowly, as if he understood every part of that sentence more deeply than most people ever would. "I get it," he said. "Sometimes quiet is the only thing that helps." She hesitated, then lifted her eyes again. "Then, why did you close the door?" He blinked, surprised. "Oh, sorry. I thought someone might walk in, and I didn't want them assuming we were still working. I can open it if you'd like." "No," she said quickly. Then softer, "No, it's okay." And it was. More than okay, actually. The room felt warmer with him there. Not in a romantic way, at least not yet. But in the way you feel when someone shows up at exactly the moment you didn't know you needed them. Silence drifted between them for a few seconds, but it wasn't heavy. It wasn't awkward. It felt like quiet that belonged. Daniel watched her carefully, not pushing, not assuming. "Maya, you don't always have to hold everything together on your own." Her breath caught again. She hated how easily his words found the parts of her she tried to hide. "I know," she whispered. "But it's hard to stop." "I'm here," he said. He didn't say it dramatically. He didn't say it like a promise he couldn't keep. Just simple. True. Steady. And for a moment, she let herself feel that steadiness. Let herself breathe it in. She didn't realize she had stepped a little closer to him until she felt the difference in the space between them. Not tension. Not discomfort. Just a gentle pull she didn't know how to ignore. "Maya," Daniel whispered, barely audible, "you don't have to explain anything right now. Just let yourself rest for a minute." She closed her eyes. And for the first time all evening, her chest loosened just a little. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. When she opened her eyes again, Daniel was still there, calm, steady, and watching her with an expression she had never seen from him before. And that was the moment everything truly began to shift. Some moments speak louder in silence than in words. And as Maya stood there with Daniel, She felt a shift she couldn't quite name, but she couldn't ignore, either. The room was small, barely big enough for a few boxes and supplies. But somehow, it felt safer than the entire building outside. Daniel stayed near the door, hands relaxed at his sides. He wasn't crowding her. He wasn't asking anything from her. He was simply there. And maybe that was why her heart wouldn't settle. She took a slow breath, trying to collect herself. "I didn't mean to worry anyone," she said softly. "You didn't," Daniel replied. "I came back because I forgot my jacket. I didn't expect to find you here." Maya nodded, though her eyes drifted downward again. The lantern she held suddenly felt heavier than it should have. Daniel stepped a little closer, careful and measured. "Can I ask you something?" She looked up. "Sure." He tilted his head gently. "What made tonight feel heavier? Was it the event? The people? Or something else?" The question was kind, not invasive. But it reached deeper than she was prepared for. She swallowed. "I think it was everything. The planning. The noise. The pressure to make sure everyone else felt comfortable. I kept telling myself I was fine, but when I finally stepped away, I realized how tired I was." Daniel nodded with quiet understanding. "You always carry more than you admit." It wasn't a criticism. It was recognition. And something in her chest warmed at the thought that someone had noticed. She leaned back against one of the boxes, letting her shoulders drop slightly. "I don't like letting people see when I'm overwhelmed." "I know," he said gently. "But you don't have to hide from me." The room felt still for a moment. Not tense. Just still. Maya studied him, the calmness in his eyes, the steady way he breathed, the patience in his posture. "You always sound so sure," she whispered. "That's because I know you," he replied. "Maybe better than you think." She didn't know how to answer that. A quiet flutter moved through her chest, small but undeniable. Daniel noticed, she could see it in the slight softening of his expression. But he didn't comment on it. He didn't push. Instead, he slowly lifted his hand and pointed toward the lantern she held. "Do you want me to take that? You look like your arms are getting tired." Her lips curved into a small smile. "You noticed that too?" "Of course." His tone was warm, almost playful. "But only because you've been holding it so tight I thought you were trying to keep it from running away." A soft laugh escaped her, light and surprising. And hearing it, Daniel smiled too, gently, like he had been waiting all evening to see her relax even a little. She handed him the lantern, their fingers brushing for just a second. The touch was subtle, simple, accidental. But it sent a faint warmth through her hand that lingered longer than it should have. Daniel set the lantern aside and then looked at her again, his voice low but steady. "Maya, I'm glad I walked in when I did." Her breath caught. "Why?" "Because you shouldn't have been alone feeling like that." There was no hidden meaning. No pressure. Just sincerity that wrapped around her like a soft blanket. She lowered her gaze, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's strange. I didn't want anyone to find me, but I'm not upset that you did." Daniel took in a slow breath, as if steadying something inside himself. "Can I tell you something?" She lifted her eyes. His expression had changed, not dramatically, but gently. There was honesty there, quiet but unmistakable. "Maya, you matter to me. More than you probably realize." Her heart gave a soft, startled ache. She didn't know how to respond. Not yet. Daniel didn't expect her to. He simply stood there, letting the weight of his words settle in the quiet room. Outside the door, the hallway was silent. The entire building felt still, as if time had paused just for them. Maya breathed in slowly, trying to make sense of the feeling that had begun to unfold inside her, gentle, cautious, warm. But before she could say anything back, a sound echoed faintly from the other side of the door. A footstep. A voice. Someone returning? Daniel looked toward the door, then back at her, his expression shifting slightly. And just like that, the moment between them changed again. Sometimes the smallest sound can break a moment wide open. The faint noise outside the door did exactly that. Maya straightened slightly, her breath catching. For a second, she wondered if someone was about to walk in and see them there, standing closer than they usually would, wrapped in a quiet that felt more intimate than the room itself. Daniel listened carefully, but the sound didn't return. He exhaled softly. "Probably just the building settling," he said, though his voice held a hint of uncertainty. Maya nodded, but the moment had already shifted. Not in a bad way, just enough to remind her that the world still existed outside that small room. Daniel stepped back a few inches, giving her a little more space. Not because the closeness had been uncomfortable, but because he respected the line between comfort and pressure. Maya offered him a small, grateful look. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" he asked. "For being gentle with me tonight. For noticing without me having to say anything." Daniel's expression warmed, the corners of his lips lifting just slightly. "You don't have to thank me for that. I notice because I care." The words were simple, but they landed deep. Maya looked down at her hands, fingers brushing over the rough edge of one of the boxes. "I'm not used to people seeing past the surface," she murmured. "I know," he said. "But that doesn't mean you don't deserve it." She lifted her eyes again, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The quiet returned, soft, calm, and somehow comforting. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. "I didn't plan on telling you any of that," he admitted. "But when I saw you here, something just felt different." Her breath caught at the echo of her own earlier thought. He felt it too, the shift, the difference, the something she couldn't name. "Different how?" she asked gently. He hesitated, searching for the right words. "It's like, tonight showed me something I didn't realize I'd been avoiding." He paused. "And that was how much your emotions affect mine." Maya's heart softened at his honesty. She hadn't expected that. She hadn't even dared to imagine it. "That's a big thing to say," she whispered. "It's a true thing," he replied. She held his gaze for a long moment. And slowly, something inside her opened, something she had kept locked away for a long time. "Daniel," she said quietly, "I didn't want to be alone tonight." "Not really. I just didn't know how to ask for space without pushing everyone away." He nodded with a gentleness that made her chest ache. "I get that. And I'm not here to push. I just want to make sure you're okay. And you being here," she said, voice softening, "helps." Daniel's eyes warmed, a subtle relief flickering there. "Good," he murmured. "I was hoping it did." For a moment, the air settled again, warm and steady. But then Maya let out a slow breath, her voice barely above a whisper. "Daniel, you said you care. What does that mean exactly?" The question hung between them like a quiet spark. He took a slow step toward her, moving carefully, deliberately, making sure she saw every inch of the distance he closed. "It means," he said softly, "that when you walked away earlier, I noticed. Not because I was worried about the event or the volunteers, but because I didn't want you to feel alone." Her chest tightened, emotions swirling gently, not overwhelming her this time, just settling in, real and undeniable. He continued, his voice steady. "It means I pay attention to you. Not out of obligation. Not because I should. But because I want to." Maya swallowed, pressing a hand lightly to her chest as if steadying something inside herself. "And what am I supposed to do with that?" she whispered. "You don't have to do anything," he said gently. "I just needed to be honest with you." Honesty. It felt like a rare gift, especially tonight. She took a small step toward him without meaning to. Their eyes stayed locked, and for a second, it felt like the world had shrunk to the size of that small room. Her voice trembled in the softest way. "Daniel, I don't know what I'm feeling right now. But I know I don't want this moment to end." He inhaled, slow and steady. His expression softened even more, warm, hopeful, but careful. "It doesn't have to," he said softly. "I'm right here." And he was. Closer now, but not too close. Warm, steady, waiting. Maya took one more breath, feeling something unfold inside her that she hadn't let herself acknowledge before. But before she could speak again, a sudden soft knock tapped against the outside of the door. Both of them froze. The moment shattered, suspended in midair. The soft knock on the door felt louder than it should have. Not harsh. Not urgent. Just enough to pull both of them back into the real world. Maya's breath caught. Daniel straightened, but only slightly, as if protecting the quiet between them even now. A voice followed, muffled through the door. "Is anyone still in there?" Maya recognized it. One of the volunteers. Kind, cheerful, and oblivious to the fragile moment she had just interrupted. Daniel looked at Maya, waiting for her cue. He didn't answer right away. He didn't move toward the door. He watched her with gentle patience, letting her decide. Maya swallowed and whispered, "It's fine. You can open it." Daniel nodded softly. But he didn't move immediately. He took one step closer to her, just one, and lowered his voice. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Yeah. I think I am." He searched her face for a moment, as if making sure. Then he turned and opened the door halfway. The volunteer peeked in, smiling. "Oh, sorry. I didn't know anyone was still in here. We're locking up soon, so I was checking each room." Daniel nodded. "No problem. We'll be out in a minute." The volunteer thanked them and moved on, and Daniel closed the door again, quietly this time. The silence returned. But this time, it felt different. Not interrupted. Transformed. Maya let out a small breath she didn't realize she had been holding. "Guess the world didn't forget about us," she murmured. Daniel offered a warm, almost amused smile. "Seems not." But neither of them moved toward the exit right away. Instead, they stayed where they were, caught in a moment that now felt even more delicate than before. Maya leaned gently against the side of a shelf. Her voice was soft. "What you said earlier. I want you to know I heard you." Daniel's eyes softened. "I hoped you did." She hesitated. "I'm just trying to understand everything I'm feeling right now. Tonight was overwhelming in more ways than one." "That's okay," he said gently. "You don't have to figure everything out tonight." She nodded, appreciating the patience in his tone. Daniel was steady in a way that made her feel grounded. Seen. Safe. "I think," she whispered, "I didn't realize how much I needed someone to show up tonight." He looked at her with quiet sincerity. "Maya, I'm always going to show up when you need me." The words settled over her, warm and steady. Not a promise made in haste. Not something dramatic. Just truth, simple and sincere. She looked down at her hands again, then back at him. "So, when you walked in and closed the door, what were you really thinking?" Daniel let out a soft breath, running a hand along the edge of a nearby table. "I was thinking you looked like you were holding the whole world together with exhausted hands." Her chest tightened gently. "And I was thinking," he continued, "that maybe you deserved a place to set it down for a minute." She blinked, emotion catching her off guard. "That's a very kind thing to say." "It's not kindness," he replied softly. "It's just what you deserve." The room felt warmer again. Not because of closeness. Not because of anything dramatic. But because the truth between them was finally settling into place. Maya stepped a little closer, her voice steady but soft. "Daniel, when you said I matter to you, what did you mean by that?" This time, he didn't hesitate. He met her eyes fully. "I meant that your presence affects me. The way you feel affects me. The way you carry yourself, the way you try so hard, all of it matters to me." Her heart gave a quiet, warm ache. "And if I told you," she whispered, "that I feel something too, even if I'm still figuring it out, what then?" Daniel's breath caught, just a little. But his smile, soft and honest, said more than his words ever could. "Then," he said, "I'll take whatever pace you need. I'm not in a rush. I just want to be here with you." Maya's shoulders loosened, tension melting away in a slow, steady wave. The truth was gentle. The moment was safe. And for the first time that night, she felt a quiet certainty blooming inside her. But before she could respond, the lights in the hallway flickered, a warning that the building was preparing to power down for the night. Daniel glanced toward the door, then back at her. "We should head out soon." Maya nodded. But she stayed where she was. Neither of them seemed ready for the night to end just yet. Daniel stepped closer, carefully, respectfully, his voice low and sincere. "Maya, before we leave, I want to ask you one thing." She looked up, breath stilling. "What is it?" she whispered. His eyes held hers steadily. "When the door closed earlier, and everything felt different, did it feel different for you too?" The question lingered, delicate and full of quiet hope. There are moments when the truth doesn't come crashing out. It simply rises, gently, until you can no longer pretend you don't feel it. Maya felt that truth now. Daniel's question lingered in the air between them, soft but weighty. "When the door closed earlier, and everything felt different, did it feel different for you too?" She wasn't someone who rushed into answers. Not tonight. Not about this. But the quiet honesty in his eyes made hiding impossible. She took a slow breath, steadying the flutter in her chest. "Yes," she whispered. "It did." Daniel's expression shifted, relief, warmth, something like hope. He didn't move closer. He didn't reach for her. He simply let the answer settle, respecting the space between them. Maya continued, voice gentle. "When you walked in, I felt everything I'd been trying to ignore. The exhaustion. The pressure. The worry." She paused. "But I also felt calm. Because it was you." Her own honesty surprised her, but it also soothed something deep inside. Daniel's shoulders loosened, the tension he'd been quietly holding slipping away. "Maya," he said softly, "you don't know how much it means to hear that." She gave a small, almost shy smile. "I think I do." The hallway lights flickered again, another reminder that time was running short. But neither of them moved toward the exit. "Not yet." Daniel spoke with quiet care. "I don't want to rush anything. I don't want to overwhelm you. But I wanted you to know how I feel, because I couldn't keep pretending tonight." Maya nodded slowly. "I'm glad you didn't pretend. You made me feel seen when I needed it most." He exhaled softly, like her words eased something inside him. "You deserve to be seen every day, not just on hard ones." Her heart tightened in the gentlest way. They stood there for a moment, letting the stillness settle around them, soft and warm. Finally, Maya stepped closer, just enough that she didn't have to raise her voice. Her eyes lifted to his. "Daniel," she said quietly, "I'm not sure where this is going. I'm not even sure what tomorrow will feel like." "That's okay," he murmured. "We don't need answers yet." She nodded. "But I know one thing. When that door closed behind you earlier, and everything felt different, it didn't scare me. Not like I expected." A soft surprise touched his expression. No, she said. It felt like something was finally shifting into place. He took in a slow breath, steady and full. His voice lowered, warm and sincere. "I've cared about you for a long time, Maya. Longer than I ever admitted to myself." Her eyes softened. "I think I cared too. I just didn't realize it until tonight." The truth between them wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was gentle. Earnest. Honest in a way that felt healing. The building lights dimmed for a final time, quietly urging them to leave. But neither seemed rushed anymore. Daniel nodded toward the door. "Walk out with me," he asked softly. She smiled. "I'd like that." They moved toward the exit, slow and unhurried. When they reached the door, Daniel paused and held it open for her. But before she stepped through, she turned back. "Daniel," she said. "Yes." "That feeling from earlier, the one I didn't want to end." She paused, her voice a little steadier now. "I hope it doesn't end when we walk out of this room." His answering expression was warm enough to fill the quiet hallway. "It won't," he said. "Not if we don't want it to." She breathed in softly, letting those words sink into her heart. Together, they stepped out into the hallway, leaving the small storage room behind. But the moment they had shared, quiet, honest, unexpected, followed them out, settling gently between them like the beginning of something real. As they reached the front doors of the community center, Daniel glanced at her, a hopeful softness in his eyes. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, "can I see you again? Not for work. Not for planning. Just to spend time with you." Maya's answer came with a warmth she couldn't hide. "Yes. I'd like that." They stepped outside into the cool night air. The sky was calm. The world was quiet. And everything truly did feel different, softly, beautifully different. Daniel walked beside her, close but not too close, matching her pace as if he'd been doing it for years. And Maya realized, maybe he had. The night didn't end with a dramatic moment. It ended with a feeling, gentle, steady, and full of quiet possibility. A beginning wrapped inside an ending. A truth finally given space to breathe. And that was enough. More than enough.